Well, if she were to freeze energy bills for all the domestic consumers for a year, the number that the industry put out, SSE, which came up with a plan, was £100 billion for a year. I've been working it out this morning based on what the cap was in October and what it's going to change to in October and January, and I make it about 60 billion quid a year. But if she also scraps the green levies, which is something she's promised to do, that will add another few billion. And a number being reported by Bloomberg this morning is £130 billion over 18 months. The way it will work, the government will freeze the unit prices that you pay for electricity and gas, so basically it'll be frozen at the old cap back in October, which was £1,971 for the average household, and the government will cover the rest. Ofgem is sidelined. A lot depends really on what happens to gas prices in the meantime. If they stay very high, it'll be much more expensive. If they drop back, it'll be less expensive. Some big questions still remain, though. What do you do about business bills for energy? We haven't really heard about how to get involved with that, and it's very difficult given all the different types of companies involved and different types of energy usage. And we haven't heard whether this plan will come with any kind of incentive to save energy, or dare I say a plan for rationing, because energy is a fast-moving situation. And the question may not just be putting the money in place to pay for energy this winter, it may also be putting the plans in place to stop disruptions to supplies and having blackouts this winter.
And how do you cap a business rate? Because as you say, a business that has sort of 5 employees and doesn't use much energy to a very energy-intensive business are very different things. There's no pre-existing cap to go back to, so it's not like you can use some work that's already been done. How would you even do that?
I don't know is the honest answer. And actually, in some European countries, are charging businesses surcharges to dissuade them from using gas, for example. So it's quite a complicated thing. And also, you'd have to guard against fraud. We saw in the pandemic, of course, there were lots of fraudulent applications for pandemic support. And as you say, the usage in energy between a steel maker or a glass plant and the average restaurant is huge. And industrial energy use is much bigger in the UK than domestic energy use. So it's a really tricky issue.
Here's the thing also that I think could wind people up a little bit is that Liz Truss campaigned on no more windfall taxes, no extra windfall tax. But what this basically does is a whole bunch of very, very wealthy companies who've got even more wealthy because of a war in Ukraine, they're laughing, aren't they? I know Jacob Rees-Mogg met them and floated this proposal, and they all apparently were quite keen on it. Well, of course they're keen on it, because they're guaranteed that as the prices go up, the British government will meet the cost, so they don't lose out at all from this.
Well, there are 3 different... The ones that actually extract the oil and gas, they are making huge profits. Now, Liz Truss did say no new taxes. That doesn't stop her from increasing the existing windfall tax, which was put in place by Rishi Sunak. So I would be really surprised if we didn't see an increase in the existing windfall tax to try and capture some of that. The energy suppliers are not making much money at all, but they will be delighted at a plan that sees the government pick up the difference. Because what they're really worried about is, A, being blamed for the increases in the bills, because they're the ones who send the bills that land through your letterbox, and B, a huge increase in bad debts that they are going to be on the hook for this winter when people don't pay their energy bills. So for 2 reasons, energy suppliers who are not making that much money, probably losing money at the moment, they're essentially just retail companies, very thinly capitalised. They'll probably be saved. There might be a few of them going under. For the big energy companies who provide the actual energy, that is a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting. But the other final point on this question, because there's so much that follows from this, is that we had Philip Hammond on yesterday, and he said, sit tight, implying really that by sort of middle of next year, inflation will come down. I'm not sure quite based on what, but I guess the question is, if this costs 100 billion quid for a year, or 130 for 18 months, or whatever that number is, what's to say that gas prices won't be high this time next year, or this time in 2 years' time?
Even if they stay at their current levels, Philip Hammond is right. Inflation will come down because it's an annual year-on-year. So the prices were high last year, and they'll be high again, the same level roughly next year. So inflation will be coming down.
Okay, yeah,
because it's a rate of change you're measuring. The bigger question is what about the public finances? We have £2.6 trillion worth of debt. It went up by about £400 billion during the pandemic. We had a deficit last year of £100 billion. So are you talking really about running a deficit for the next 2 years of about £100 billion, or a bit more actually? We're at 95% of GDP. That's a 2.6 trillion pounds worth of debt.
A trillion billion.
A trillion billion. It's a really big number.
No wonder that went past everyone, because it's just so much money already. That if you'd said a trillion billion, we would have believed you, Dominic.
Yeah, exactly. So I could just make up numbers as I go along, which is what I do anyway. But the answer is we probably can. the UK can still continue to borrow. But Patrick Hosking, I think, who's a very good columnist in the Times Business section today, says there is not an unlimited appetite for UK government debt in the world market. So, at some stage we're going to run up against buffers on this, and it will certainly cost us more to borrow more.